And the amazing Max is here for the first time in a while. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Amazing. I want to shout out to everyone who was able to participate in the Grand Saga Unlimited this weekend. That was a lot of fun. And it's crazy. I realized all of a sudden as I was grinding dungeons that Hovar was in my party and that I was playing with Hovar, which was amazing. Um, and yeah, it was a really great community. And Shamrock is here. Thank you, Shamrock. Shamrock power level himself this weekend. It's just fantastic to see so many friendly faces in game. It makes me even more excited for round two of the testing, which is coming soon. Uh, in Joseph's own words, he said soon.
Soon, soon, soon. It's actually funny. I didn't realize it's this Hovar, not Jovar.
That's a good question. We should probably ask. I just assumed. I guess that's a question for you. Is it a huh or is it a ja?
We'll have to follow with Jovar afterwards. Cool. Well, welcome everyone to our amazing edition of Move Monday. And we have our special guest for this week, which is Thala. So we have both Adam and man, I'm bad with names. Sam today.
Yeah, that's right. San and Adam. Hey guys, thanks, Greg.
Welcome, welcome. Hopefully, did you guys get a chance to do the GSU test? I actually didn't sign up for it, but I don't know how excited you are for Metapixel's test.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. We've been swamped, pretty busy with launch, so we haven't. But we've been looking at screenshots of it. Probably test that out after launch.
Nice, nice.
So what is it that you've been working on in terms of getting the launch?
Yeah, I mean, I
Oh,
guess I can just jump in here and talk about, what we've been up to. So, on our Twitter, we've been talking about, our TGE that's happening later this week. And so after that ends, we'll be rolling out our mainnet launch. So we've had our testnet launch live for, I think, a good, 3 to 4 weeks, maybe a little bit less. And that was sunsetted like last week. And we were just doing a bunch of testing around our core products. And obviously throughout the AMA, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I think first it might be good to do a little intro for both Adam and I. And we can probably just get started. Yeah.
Sounds good. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
yeah, yeah, sure. I'll go first. So, yeah, I'm Adam, one of the co-founders of Dalla Labs. Yeah, I've been in the crypto space for quite a while, DeFi enthusiast. Prior to this, I was working at a venture fund. Actually helped the fund invest in Aptos. That was ParaFi Capital. Really liked Move. Spent a lot of time with stable coins. When I was at the fund and kind of just personally. So, yeah, kind of combined my two interests. Aptos and stable coins. And knew San for quite a while. In the space, and yeah, co-founded Dalla last year. Yeah, that's where we're at. Pretty brief intro, but yeah, San, feel free.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm San, one of the other co-founders of Thala. For me, my background, I've been in and out of the space for a long time. So, when I was still in school, was playing a lot of Counter-Strike, if you guys know the game. Was trading a lot of skins, and that's kind of how I got into crypto in the first place. But it was kind of in and out of the space, was dabbling in it a bit, not too interested or committed, but got really into it during COVID. So decided to take the leap and pretty much went full time then. So I was working as a researcher at basically just like writing for newsletters and several like news outlets, and pretty much like just covering like DeFi regulation and some other parts. But then moved on to work at a small fund where I was primarily doing research and trading, and again just focusing on DeFi. And then I ended up leaving to work at several L1s doing business development and strategy. And then earlier like last year I was a core contributor at an options protocol on ETH. And yeah, over the summer I got together with Adam. I've known him for like 8 years now. Went to school together, so yeah, decided to found Thala back then. That's a little bit of a background on us.
Good to know somebody else who played too much Counter Strike.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think there's a lot of us.
no, for sure. Did you guys see the
Probably like everyone in
UCS update?
crypto.
2.0. I don't want to get sidetracked too much, but it looks awesome.
I haven't seen it. I haven't played Counter-Strike in years, so but I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, the Vita might get me back into it. Volumetric smoke. It's pretty. It's very pretty.
Anyways, let's get back on track. Tell us about what you guys have been building.
Yeah, for sure. So I know Adam was here. Adam, when was it? Was it like 4 months ago, 3 months ago?
Yeah, I think last October, we did a Move Monday. Our CTO was here and myself.
Right. It's interesting because I think the product has, Thala as a whole has changed quite a bit, and happy to give a little bit of a quick rundown on what exactly we're building. So, our bread and butter, the core product that we're building out is the stable coin, also called Move Dollar or MOD. So it's a decentralized, over collateralized stablecoin. It's a CDP model, so quite similar to MakerDAO, Liquidity. I think later on I can talk a little bit more about some of the granular mechanisms that kind of underscore the stable. Yeah, it's essentially very similar to the existing decentralized stablecoins with a few iterations in terms of integrations that we're building on top. And the second product that we're building out, so there's really just two products. Some people think there's three, but there's two. So the second product that we're building out is Thala Swap. So it's a rebalancer AMM that offers core pools in weighted pools, stable pools, liquidity bootstrapping pools. So I know Aptos already has a bunch of dexes, bunch of AMMs, but there are mostly Uniswap V2 variants. And so I think what we offer with the dynamic weightings has a very unique value proposition. And if you guys are familiar with like DeFi on ETH, Balancer has the 80/20 VLPT, and I think that's a pretty cool use of the weighted pools. So yeah, that's a little bit of a high level overview on the products. And I won't spend, what, I'll actually, just mention this very briefly. So, the third thing that's kind of built on top of Thala Swap is called Thala Launch, which is where we're, doing our token launch later this week. It basically taps into Thala Swap and utilizes what's called a liquidity bootstrapping pool. So throughout the duration of, the pool, it changes its weightings. So it allows for, token launches with minimal capital or liquidity being seeded. So yeah, it's a little bit of a high level overview on the products that we're building out.
Cool. And what were you testing in testnet then? Were you testing the pools?
Yeah, I mean, we were.
Yeah, so
Sorry,
during
go on.
so during the testnet, everything was live. So we were testing, the stable coin. We wanted to ensure that, well, it's still testnet, but like, liquidations would occur properly. That would always be over collateralized. So yeah, the stable coin, the liquidation mechanics, opening new vaults. And then, we had Thala Swap was fully live, testing like, the liquidity provision experience, stable swaps, all that. And then the launchpad was live as well. So we had like a testnet token LBP. So really everything was live during the testnet.
And I mean, I completely missed out on it. I was too busy doing other things, so I didn't get a chance to test it. Like, how was the reception from people?
Yeah, so it was actually like really overwhelming. I would say we didn't expect to get that many users. I think over the course of the testnet, which was basically 3 weeks, we had like 80,000 unique users. Users being like unique Aptos addresses, interacting with the app, and then we had something like 5 or 600K total transactions. The transactions that were interacting with our smart contracts, and basically every day we'd have like 10K kind of daily active users. So there was a lot of lessons to be learned there about like adjusting load. It's certainly ready for mainnet, but yeah, I mean that was like the reception was great. I think there was a few bugs here and there that were like ironed out, things around like the stable swap invariant and like making sure that everything in the system worked basically at the extreme, like edge cases and such. Very high amounts of like liquidity or like large swaps. Yeah.
And was it easy to work out those bugs? I mean, were they in the Move contracts? Like, would you just do an upgrade and it fix the problem soon enough?
Yeah, basically. I think there was very few. It was just around like some math components of things. Yeah, like a quick upgrade. passed through our auditors and then re-audited. Yeah, there was probably a bit more on like like the server, like the web app side of things, like just like accommodating the load, make sure like everything loaded quickly, like low latency. That was probably like a bigger focus, and that's easier to fix than not smart contracts. But
And I would just add that, most of the issues that we had were, as Adam said, with the server load, but also just the front end, right? So a lot of things were, to be completely honest, a lot of things were breaking down because we had 10,000 users that were just really stress testing all the components. Yeah, I just want to say that for the back end, we've been fully audited by both Zelic and Ottersec, which we think are great, and I'm sure we can talk a little bit more about that later on.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, like even when I make my own D app, since I'm not a front end developer, I find the front end and the client side stuff ends up breaking more than the contract itself.
yeah, definitely.
So you guys are on the forefront of DeFi on Aptos. How do you see it growing and the ecosystem growing here?
Yeah, for sure. I think, we can speak a little bit, generally rather than just Thala and how we see the ecosystem, progressing. So, Adam and I both did a lot of research into, other L1s, the L2s, what makes certain ecosystems successful. So I think right now, when you look at the landscape, you have, Arbitrum, Optimism that are obviously, at the top of their game. And it's interesting because, there's a lot of nuance in it, right? Like what makes these two chains successful? Whereas, others, I won't name drop, but there are other chains that had, billions of dollars in TVL, tons of users, but now it's basically just a ghost chain, right? There's no users. There's really no projects being built. And I think, the success of these ecosystems, often hinge on what I like to call like cornerstone projects. So are you guys familiar with, GMX or Synthetics? So GMX being on Arbitrum, Synthetics being on Optimism. Are you guys familiar with those?
Yeah, yeah. I'm familiar with synthetics.
Right. So I think, for me, the reason why I believe that Arbitrum and Optimism continue to be so successful and have sticky TVL, and obviously the airdrop played a pretty big part in it, but before that, right, like before the whole airdrop situation played out, the ecosystem was pretty, fleshed out. I think the reason for that is because, GMX and Synthetics offer, a very, very unique value proposition, and they are really innovative products, right? So these products basically just bring in users where users will say, hey, I want to use GMX, I want to use Synthetics, I want to use these products. And they're fairly, to be completely honest, they're chain agnostic. So they don't really have an allegiance to say, hey, I want to use dApps on our Arbitrum rate. It's just that the products are so good is that they'll come into the ecosystem and stay there, and the capital will stay there. It's not going to flow out. It's not mercenary capital that's just farming and then just leaving the chain. And so I think this is probably the most important part of building a long-term successful chain. And so the question really is, how do you build these? Like, how do you ensure that if you're like head of ecosystem at Aptos or any of these chains, how do you basically, incubate or encourage your builders to build products like these? I think, for these innovative products to be really built, you need to nail the basics. And what I mean by that is you need to have all the primitives, whether it be in like lending, the AMM space, stablecoin, that needs to be completely fleshed out, right? And all of these components really just boil down to strong liquidity. And I think, something that Aptos, to be completely honest, has been kind of missing is strong liquidity on chain. So I think, APT has a total of, $7 million in liquidity. And I know that this is an issue that Solana kind of had even at its peak, right? So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Solend. And I think at the end of last year, I can't quite remember the timelines, but there just wasn't enough SOL liquidity to facilitate some of the large liquidations. There was tons of like bad debt being built. Oracles were basically on the brink of like breaking down, right? So these basic primitives really need to be fleshed out, and that's kind of what we want to do at Thala, right? So that's why we're building the AMM. That's why we're building the stablecoin. We want to help the ecosystem grow in its like first stage, and then we want to build out, as I said, like the innovative products and innovative like integrations on top. So I hope that kind of makes sense in terms of our approach to, why we're building the way we are, and how we see the ecosystem progress.
That's really interesting, actually. So, in terms of TVL, what do you think is a driver? What drove TVL to Solana, and obviously, the airdrops. is, I think Mo calls it like a sugar rush, right? It's very short term, big pump, and then TVL obviously leaves the ecosystem as people try to find the next airdrop somewhere else, right? So in DeFi products, what do you see as kind of a long term sticky features for an ecosystem?
Right. I mean, I think you said it yourself. Crypto really is just a game of, it's just an attention game, right? And a lot of these guys will just completely leave the chain, will not return after they do their thing. They farm, they get their eligibility done, right? So I think most chains that have the capacity to garner that hype will see one or two instances of just like massive inflows, of just massive TVL inflows. So you look at Avalanche, Near, Harmony, all these chains in this past cycle, they've all hit like $2 billion in TVL at least, right? They've hit billions of dollars in TVL, had tens of thousands of users, and they were doing really, really well. But unfortunately for them, it was clearly all just like mercenary capital and mercenary users that just used the chain and decided to leave. And again, this goes back to what I was saying, right? Like the cornerstone projects like GMX and Synthetics, you need to have users that will constantly return, regardless of market conditions, regardless of where the chain is at in terms of its airdrop, or the hype cycle, and we'll continue to just use the product because it's good, solely because it's good, right? I think GMX is a super innovative model with the way they use GLP. Synthetics with SUSD is also a really great model. So people want to trade, right? And they want to use decentralized perplexes, and they realize, hey, this is a great alternative to DYDX. GMX and Synthetics are fantastic. So I think that's probably the most important part in having sticky TVL and having and basically being able to retain users.
Interesting. What are, I guess, how do we get there, right? Like, so, you're building a piece of this kind of larger whole, right? Um, what is required for us to get there? Because, we can bring stables, we can build bridges, right? We can create easier ways for people to bring liquidity from other chains, like via stables and things like that. But ultimately, what are the other pieces here for a holistic DeFi ecosystem?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we can probably talk a little bit more about our roadmap, but yeah, I mean, and to answer your question, I was talking earlier about how do you ensure that these products like GMX and synthetics and these innovative products get built within the ecosystem, right? And obviously, the first piece
Yeah, yeah.
being you need to nail the primitives, and what Thala is doing in its first iteration or V1 is kind of encompassing many of these primitives, and yeah, and basically just trying to build up the liquidity and the TVL within the ecosystem so that key pieces of infra like the oracles can actually track prices properly, and that leads to more derivatives being built on top. And I think to offer like more nuance into a lot of the innovation that happens on Ethereum and the L2s like Arbitrum. I think it has a lot to do with the composability. So for us, it's the Tala swap offers weighted pools. It offers all types of different pools, and in the future we'll add something like boosted pools, which can really you know really help like lending markets and their deposit receipt tokens. So there's that composability piece, right, that we want to build out first. But what you're asking, I think, is a really hard question. And if we all had the answer to that, like we wouldn't really be here. We would, things would be so much better for everyone. But for us specifically, something that we're really betting on within the stablecoin is real world assets. And so this is something that's probably going to be shipped, within our V2 sometime in Q3. I don't want to make any promises in terms of timelines, but yeah, something we really want to do is integrate, real world assets as a collateral base for mod. And sorry, please feel free to jump in if I start, going off tangents or just ranting. But I think decentralized stablecoins, today you look at, you look at LUSD, you look at DAI, and I think they do a great job. LUSD does a great job in being decentralized, but is not very capital efficient. DAI is incredibly capital efficient through its PSM, but it's not very decentralized, as I'm sure you guys all saw when Circle depegged and people found out that DAI is primarily backed by USDC, so it is still quite censorable and susceptible to centralization risks. The way we're trying to tackle that and trying to have a compromise for this stablecoin trilemma is having these partners from Ethereum, Solana, these real world asset protocols and integrating their token assets, their collateral assets, and whitelisting it for Thala, so we can integrate that into mod. And I think that basically serves as an alternative to having fiat stablecoins in a decentralized stablecoins collateral composition, right? So they're stable, they're not very volatile, they're also yield bearing. So it really solves for that capital efficiency piece while also ensuring that the protocol still remains largely decentralized. Adam, feel free to jump in and add anything else about the real world assets.
Yeah, I mean, there's there's like a pretty good example of this. If we're talking about like pieces of collateral, it's like U.S. Treasuries on chain. So like U.S. Treasuries, off chain in the real world are probably like one of the most liquid, pristine pieces of collateral. And there's been like some pretty good efforts to like bring them on chain, like Ondo, Stream, like a bunch of others. And it's kind of an example of what we're working on. But say like we add, U.S. Treasury as collateral. You can explore really interesting strategies, like levering up, like depositing U.S. Treasury as collateral, minting mod against it, buying more U.S. Treasuries with that, and getting like the recursive yield. And that's actually like a really unique product, right? Like that doesn't exist, off chain. Like retail can't access that, but it's a completely unique value proposition for crypto, where you can kind of like lower fixed costs, have things 24/7. Be transparent, liquidations and collateral composition. So, if we can like enable use cases like that, that's where, DeFi apps really have like a long-term future, right? It doesn't just rely on, kind of the circular money flow between chains kind of being bridged around and like short-term yield farming opportunities, as you guys mentioned. So, I think it really does come down to that. It's like first we build this crypto native liquidity, we collateralize with APT, like stake APT, USDC, whatever. But then we add these real world asset pieces as collateral that have a ton of off-chain liquidity, and then build like a really interesting, long-term use case.
What is kind of the on-off ramp to that? I think that's super interesting, but how are users on chain, I guess, certain that the asset is actually backed, by the treasury?
Yeah, I mean, like you're talking about like so it does come down to like the partner protocols that we work with, and like how like trustable their custodians are. For example, like I name dropped a few, but you do kind of have to like do your own research, and kind of like rely on like the reputation or such of these custodians. That is a really good question. It's like, how do you know it's fully backed? You kind of have to evaluate it just like you'd be evaluating like a traditional security or a fund. But the thinking here is like it starts off small, right? Like users, maybe they deposit a couple hundred USDC, buy a US Treasury, like they hold that for a while. They redeem it, they test the redeemability. Okay, they can get their USDC back. And it kind of like scales up over time. Obviously, it's super nascent, but just like everything, you have to give it time to prove itself. And then, once these like systems can show that, they can handle millions of dollars of redemption, volume, like that's, it's probably a pretty good sign that they're in a good state. Just like using like a centralized exchange, for like withdrawals or deposits.
Yeah, I asked because, I was looking and seeing the thing about, I think someone was moving in $25 million batches outside of centralized exchanges, and then the whole thing with CZ and the allegations that like there's insider trading, like their internal OTC trading against customers and stuff like that. And so I definitely think that the decentralized space is really the only way that we can solve for these problems in a large way, because putting so much trust in centralized exchanges is dangerous, as we've seen, I think, multiple times at this point. But it's really hard to do those kind of fiat on-ramps, and how do you, bridge and, if we move the trust basically right from CX to these partners that buy and sell these assets, I do think that is adding, as long as you have more than one partner, you're adding a level of decentralization, right? It's possible for one partner to be not necessarily as honest without taking down, the same whole level of trust that we have with just Binance, for example, or just Coinbase.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think so. To add on to what Adam was saying, I think Ondo, which we're exploring their treasuries with. I mean, they pretty much work with BlackRock, PIMCO, some of the biggest custodians, and also like Coinbase, ClearStreet. So I think the counterparty risk is very defined. But Max, what you're saying definitely makes sense, and I think even though I think time and time again in the past year we've trusted these centralized institutions, and we've been like incredibly wrong on multiple fronts. And I think that's the great thing about, as you said, like on chain, it's fully transparent. You can see everything, and even USDC. I think it was only 2 weeks ago. It's crazy, but yeah, there was just so much confusion. There was so much FUD. People had no idea what was going on. They had no idea how big the hole was in the balance sheet. I think it was just a weekend. Circle just went completely radio silent. People were panicking, just selling USDC at like 90 cents. But if their balance sheets and collateral are fully on chain, which it is for us, people can see where the money lies, right? They can exactly pinpoint which wallets it's in, which multi-sigs it might be in, where the treasuries are, how can we backstop it. So I think that's a really unique value proposition. And I think I'd be sugarcoating it to say that, hey, like DeFi is perfect. Centralization is already as it is, it's perfect. I don't think that's true at all. I mean, we saw DPEGs across like MIM and these other decentralized stablecoins. And I think there's a lot of stress testing that still needs to be done. But yeah, I think time and time again, DeFi has really proven itself to have a unique value proposition.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see that you're trying to push things forward here in ways that we're not seeing on other chains. I think it's super exciting.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to segue us away from stablecoins. You guys are building a coin voting governance tool as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. We haven't released too much about it publicly, but yeah, I mean, so we're launching our token, right? And presumably a lot of other Aptos like DeFi or gaming or whatever protocols will be launching tokens too. And um, there isn't any like coin voting governance tool on Aptos yet, and it's definitely like a needed feature, right? Like coins need governance capabilities from like a community, legal, utility standpoint. So yeah, I mean the simple product is like it's kind of like I would say similar to Snapshot, but it'll be fully on chain. You submit proposals to like a protocol, and then it's just voted upon with the coin. So yeah, I mean that's going to be live pretty soon after we launch our token. Hopefully, like it won't just be us using it, but it'll be a lot of other protocols on Aptos. But yeah, it's like a foundational layer. Governance is super important. We have like a Twitter account for it, but like no public docs and such. But yeah, soon.
Yeah, I guess I leaked some alpha from you guys.
Oh, no worries, no worries. It's we're not trying to hide anything about it here. We just yeah, no, we're excited to unveil it as well.
Yeah, it's very similar to I think recently with Aries made a NFT voting tool for on-chain governance as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Cool. And one other thing I wanted to ask about was I know that 0xB1, that guy, he's always asking me all kinds of questions all the time. I know he's helping a lot with some new stuff in the Explorer space. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So I think there's also probably some like limitations on what I can say, but basically the Aptos Explorer in its like state right now has like the basic functionalities where like you can like input an address or a transaction, and you can see it's like some basic information like it's like some of the state changes or like what addresses interacted with what, but it's really missing like some core features that say like Etherscan has. And the two most important ones from like a user and development standpoint are um, writing directly to contracts, and then being able to read the source code of verified contracts. And we've basically been working with the Explorer team to add in this functionality. So you'll be able to interact with contracts directly through the Explorer. You won't have to, if you don't want to use a front end or you don't trust the front end, well, you can directly go to the Explorer and interact with that contract, which is super important from like a security and UX perspective, as well as being able to read the code, vet the code yourself and everything. And that should be released pretty soon. I think in the next like week or two.
Yeah, I think this is amazing. So these are two features that I wanted for a long time, and thank you so much for helping making them happen. For those listening, I think one of the large differences, allergies. One of the large differences between, I think, a lot of EVM chains and Aptos is that when you publish a contract to the chain, you actually have the ability to specify that you want to publish the source code along with it. So it's not necessarily as centralized as Etherscan, having to go and try to see if they have the source for the contract, but you can pull it down from on chain. You can try to compile it yourself to make sure that the hashes match. And then I think this interacting with the contract is a huge boost for UX too, because every once in a while I do have a one-off situation where I have to go to the CLI and I have to put my private key in there, and it'll be so much easier to just have a nice clean UI to be able to do that. So thank you so much for bringing to really just.
No, definitely. I mean, we were we had this like idea internally, but like I think frankly a lot of other chains like they're kind of like slow at doing this stuff. So we were pretty excited and pretty glad that you guys were like, I think we basically got to it right away. I think we proposed the idea, and then your engineers set up like a Slack channel, and we basically got at it. But yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, we're always trying to build what people want, Thank you. Anything else that you guys wanted to mention, by the way?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think there's still quite a few things. I guess we could talk a little bit more about roadmap. We could talk about our recent partnerships, integrations with Layer Zero. There's a few things. I'll leave it up to you. Whatever you want to hear about.
Yeah. Let's do your roadmap real quick, and then I'll open up the floor for questions.
Yeah, for sure. So we should be releasing a blog post on our tokenomics and how exactly that'll work in the next day or so. But so within the product roadmap and what we're building out, there's obviously Parliament, which we just talked about. There's the real world asset module that we teased earlier, which will probably be shipping sometime Q3. And I think one other big piece is the V tokenomics. So if you guys are familiar with Curve or Balancer, this is something that they built out, right? And we want to develop a V token model that's very similar to Balancer. So it utilizes an 80-20 liquidity pool token. So that's an 80-20, weighted pool within ThalaSwap. And what this enables is that, so for those who aren't really familiar with how the vote escrow model really works, is that it essentially allows these token holders that choose to lock their tokens to have governance power or voting power, and they can basically vote for these gauges. And so the rewards, the liquidity mining rewards that get sent to the pools, they basically control the emissions, and they choose where the THL emissions would go to. So this is something that Curve invented, has been really, really awesome for them, I think, for the past 2 years. And there's been a lot of products built on top of that, like convex, like the bribing layers. So we're really excited to push that forward. And so I think we also partnered with Layer Zero very recently, turning our stablecoin and our governance token into OFTs, which is their omni-chain fungible token standard. And so we're looking to explore like cross-chain gauges with that. But I mean, overall, like, what the V tokenomics would really enable is, first of all, like an optimal spend of liquidity mining incentives. So everything is aligned, and also, having more value accretive measures for the token holders.
Cool. Sometimes the DeFi stuff goes over my head. I honestly, not the best in DeFi. This is why we got Max here to ask the real questions. Anyways, so I'm going to open up the floor for questions, and we can bring some people here to ask questions for Thala or Max or me.
Woo!
I'm pulling up Alex from Verstake here.
Hi, GM, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry,
We do.
sorry. Twitter needs some time before before I can hear anything. Yes, thank you so much. Adam and Sam is the name, right? If I get it right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So really curious to know, about all the projects building in Aptos. You mentioned that you had like unexpected number of users, if I remember correctly, around 10,000. So how did you?
We had 80,000
Wow.
was the total over the 3 week testnet. It was like 10,000 daily.
Yeah, so that's super epic. I don't know if any other Aptos project has so many numbers right now. So can you tell me a bit more, like how did you found those users? Did you expect more or less, and what was their experience?
Yeah, so I'll just answer candidly here. Like I don't think we like went out of our way to find users. They just kind of used the app. Like, obviously we have like a big Twitter account, and I think we were pretty good with our comms, communicating like exactly how to use the testnet, when it was. We, broke down like the wallet options, which I think was pretty important. Like, showing like how to use the wallets, Martian, Pontham, like onboarding people from other chains. And then I think we also have like a pretty big global community as well. We were tracking these, metrics throughout the testnet. But yeah, we just had like a really uh, like diverse geographic kind of component of users, right? Like we had a ton of users from South Korea, from Hong Kong, from Canada, kind of like across Europe. I think we did a pretty good job at like translating our testnet content into like different languages too. So we translated it into like Korean, Chinese, like German, etc., French. So yeah, I think like appealing to like the wider kind of crypto community, as well as being like clear in our comms and breaking down how to use the app, helped out kind of exceed our expectation for testnet users.
Yeah, it's exciting to hear that you translate into multiple languages. I feel like that's something that we need to work on ourselves as well. Did you find any particular languages that were most important to add next?
Um, I think, well, so unlike the existing languages that I mentioned, those were pretty big. I think Aptos also has a lot of users from India and Vietnam, which like we didn't initially translate content for, but that was like a really big user base. So I think yeah, like uh, Hindi, Vietnamese probably be pretty good options to like translate future like Aptos like white paper content into.
Yeah, I know we have it feels like we have a strong community in India, Vietnam, and even I think Turkey after that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Turkey was a big uh, uh, geographic component as well. Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions, Alex?
No, thank you so much, and pleasure to meet you guys.
Yeah, definitely.
I have a quick question while we're pulling up the next person. Um, so if you look at like synthetics is kind of like the center of like a very large ecosystem that has a lot of different products built on top of it. How are you trying to balance building out these additional products yourself um, versus trying to get ecosystem to build some of them?
Right. I mean, we're just basically just offering the tools, right? We want to build out that liquidity. We want to have that infrastructure really bolstered, whether it be, oracles or whatever. And, we'll try to partner with them. And I think the Thala launch model, we're open to like incubating these projects, and we definitely want others to build it. Like, I think we're very spread thin already in terms of what we're tackling. And you're right. I think synthetics is really great because there's a bunch of things built on top with that use SGSD, right? I think the biggest one being like Lyra, and there are other options protocols that utilize SUSD. So I think The really important part is, as I talked about earlier, just enabling that composability piece, right? So I think that can come in many different forms. I think speaking of optimism, like Beta X is also a good example where it utilizes composable stable pools from Balancer, right? So I think as long as we build out these primitives and there is solid, on-chain liquidity and there's good TVL, naturally the builders will come and they'll build strong products that can leverage on top of these primitives.
Go jump in, Alex.
Yeah, I just want to say I didn't look at your roadmap yet. Like, do you guys plan to implement staking or you focus on other products?
Sorry, by staking, do you mean for the governance token, or are we talking about like LSDs?
I'm talking about the blending, any staking solutions for holders. I mean, or Aptos tokens or your own token, like delegated or liquid staking.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, for our governance token, I think the V tokenomics will probably be the alternative to just regular staking. I don't really see a lot of value in having like single side staking, just link vaults and you just strip tokens to it. But I think the V tokenomics model, yeah, I mean you're essentially staking the LPT, right? So I think that's a really good model. We should have more information around that by tomorrow. So yeah, just look out for that.
Hey, Shamrock, you're up.
Hello everyone. Actually, it's pretty unexpected to be up on stage so early because you always bring me up in the end of the spaces. So yeah, first of all, shout out to all the survivors of first community test of Grand Saga Unlimited. It was really insane. Today I finally had some sleep, Yeah, especially shout out to Max. Yeah, and sorry for we had not much time to help you to level up because it was such a huge difference with the levels. But yeah, I'm happy you actually got into my latest screenshot on the when the servers were about to shut down. So yeah, it was huge, like enormous fun. And yeah, I want to actually make a proposal maybe for the next or one of the next Move Mondays to bring up the Metapixel team once again. So we will have, some conclusions on the first community test. It will be really, really funny for anyone, I'm pretty sure. Well, for me, obviously, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think that would be great. We just have to work out some time because I think they're all in Korea, right?
Yeah, I know it's it's a time zone issue, obviously, but I think we can find some solution because there are so many people who is hyped about the project and who had no chance to join the first community test. And yeah, since we shared all those screenshots and videos, I think they're even more interested about the project. So I think it will be a really good idea. Well, I'm pretty sure you will find the best way to make this happen because I believe in you. And yeah, Max, I have a personal question. When you will follow me back finally? It's been a while.
Back. Sorry, I don't follow back a lot just because I get a lot of those invites and I honestly don't look at the screen. But I followed you back, so thank you for the poke.
Let's go. And yeah, a question. Let's get back to the topic. I have a question to Tala. Hello, Adam. Hello, Sam. Actually, as you all know, we're in how to say it, airdrop testnet Hunt meta. So since you had so many registered wallets for the testnet, it's kind of obvious that there were many airdrop hunters. And even since you, as I remember good, you never mentioned that this testnet will be rewarded somehow or something like that. I'm still curious if there will be something like that, how you will manage people who were abusing all the testing system. I'm just curious about that, and if you actually gonna do something like this.
Right. So I mean, I'll cut to the chase, right? We are not doing an airdrop, and I think we've looked into a lot of the past airdrops, at least at the application layer, and yeah, I mean it's pretty conclusive that they're not very like value additive. So I mean, I think the most recent ones that I can think of, Blur, which is not really DeFi related, but Hop across these bridges. I think airdrop this meta of airdrop farming that's really got come alive again with the Arbitrum airdrop, which I think is like the biggest airdrop in like 2 years. And now there are people like just like sidling, ZK Sync, StarkNet, all these different chains. And I definitely appreciate the users who came to use the testnet, but I don't think there's that really necessitates giving out free tokens. And it usually just doesn't really lead to much conversions. And we've looked into it. We've done significant research into this, where we looked into the holder base of the people who were initially airdropped, and I don't think it really converts to a long-term community by any means. It's usually just short-term actors that chase profits, that just want to dump and move on, right? And you've seen that with so many chains time and time again. People come in, they farm it, they get the airdrops, they sell it, and they just leave the chain, right? So that's kind of our stance on it. I mean, I'm happy to talk to anyone that has anything to really say that's like substantive in the Discord channel, but that's kind of where our stance is at right now.
Yeah, I see. Thanks for reply. And also one more, since you will have this token generation event, will there be any, sales of token or something like that? Like, ICO, IDO, IPO, whatever.
Yeah, so the mechanism is a little different, and I will, refrain from talking too much about this on the spaces right now. But yeah, we have some posts. I think it's like the past like 3 posts, so you can just refer to that and look at how the LBP mechanism works. It's a little bit different from like IDOs or ICOs for very very good reason. So yeah, feel free to just check this out. If you have any questions, just ping me in the Discord.
Yeah, I'm actually one of the first who joined Tala Discord. Yeah, I have pioneer role, so yeah, I will obviously, to ping you and ask any questions. So yeah, I don't want to take too much time on air. So yeah, thanks for having me here. Thanks Aptos team. Thanks Tala team. Yeah, I love you all, and yeah, let's go.
Thanks, Shamrock. Always fun to have you on. I don't see any other people requesting, so please, if you have any questions for the Thal team or us, come on up. And meanwhile, I will go and fill the space by talking about last week's event that we had. So I was at the Metapixel PC Bomb? PC Bomb.
PC Bomb.
And it was a live playtest of both Grand Saga GSU and as well Pixelcraft. So we had a fun little event in San Francisco. Hopefully I get to meet you guys, a bunch of you, and it was really quite fun. Just, I competed against a couple of our teammates and as well as some other people who got really annoyed with me when I kept beating them in the battle royales.
It was a good time. It was a good time. It was really cool to see so many people come through. We had like a PC bomb downstairs where you could PC bomb downstairs where you could actually go and play. But upstairs was socializing, talking to labs. We got cool shirts that say Aptos Labs, ask me anything on them. It was really great just to see so many people come through. I also attended GDC for a little bit, and I wanted to add that I went last year and I went this year. And one of the main differences that I saw was this year there were more game developers talking to developers that were building on a bunch of different chains about how the experience was, how to use NFTs, what you can do with them. And so it's really cool to see, year over year over year that the space is growing, that there are more and more serious people, from DeFi, from games, from everywhere coming into the space and building. And that, Web3 is not going anywhere. Web3 is only going to become more present in all of our lives.
And Alex, you say you have something you want to say? As well as, please, everyone, like, if you want to request something, come up, tell me who you want to see on the next Move Monday, anything. Thanks.
Yeah, I just want to say like perfect timing. I just posted like last week update. If anyone like wants to know, I just posted in the comments like what happened in Aptos. 5 seconds of shield. Sorry.
No, I mean I've seen your tweets. You've been doing a good job summarizing the thing. You know, a little bit of people flooding your own tweets, but that's just community that comes with Twitter.
Yeah, just a quick remark and shout out to Alex for gathering all the statistics. He's doing really amazing job, and yeah, this community really appreciate him.
Thank you, bro.
Amazing.
Oh,
So
I have a
we
question.
have time for some casual talks.
Oh, it sounds like Alex has a question.
No, like I'm also on the casual talk. So we had last week, not this weekly, we had woman in Web3 space, or was it 2 weeks ago? I think it was last week.
It was last week.
So last week. So when will we have men in Web3 spaces?
No, I think that's pretty much every day. So it's okay. I don't think we need one.
I'd love to get to a world where we feel like we need a Men in Web3 day. I think that would be a fun place to get to eventually. But yeah, no. Unfortunately, we are with Web3, especially in tech in general, it's been skewed, I think, demographically for some time, and it's always really cool to see people building and getting past that building.
I will say one good thing about Web3 is with the decentralization, it's a very international group. I mean, I've worked in software for years, and I used to work at Amazon, and like I've worked with a lot of international people, but generally they would end up moving to the US to work at the company. Versus this actually enables people to work from their home countries all around the world. Right? We have communities in Turkey and Turkey and Vietnam. There's people in Nigeria. There's people in China. There's people in Korea. You got Shamrock somewhere in Europe. I don't actually know where because I don't know off the top of my head. It's great. Shamrock.
Yeah, actually, since we're having some casual talks, some casual questions, and yeah, Alex asked about men in spaces. Yeah, I have actually a kind of similar question. When we will have some key opinion leaders move Monday? Like something like top 10 of Spook's list personalities or something like that, because yeah, I'm really curious, and I think actually community wish to hear something on stage from the people who's contributing to this community, like green farming engagement, like every day, like 24/7, like myself. So yeah, maybe you will have some plans or ideas to organize some spaces like this.
Take the Spooks list and take the top 3 people, and they're the guests for the next week or something like that.
Well, actually, like top 10.
That might be.
And we will be,
there's only 12 slots, so 10 people would be too much. So like, so I said like top 5. You'll have to fight harder to get to the top 5 then.
Okay. I was top 1, and yeah, why it's such a weird timing,
Bro, this is the idea. So you say it like, okay, guys, next week whoever gets on top 5 and Spook's list, and then you will see like hundreds and hundreds of posts about Aptos. Let's get Aptos great again, have thousands of tweets.
Well, anyway, my idea actually was, because we have it's a topic about more like some support your local influencers and key opinion leaders, something like that. Because many people asking to bring some big influencers to Aptos, which will be in my opinion and of many opinion of people, it will be like a cancer for the ecosystem, because we have such an amazing people who really grinding this stuff like every day, every single day. You can check our accounts, and you will see like contribution to Aptos like every single day, every hour. I will say. So yeah, if there will be like, any opportunity to have spaces like this, some like casual spaces, it will be really cool. So people will know their heroes, and maybe will get some inspiration and something like that, how actually they can, contribute to the Aptos ecosystem as well. Because yeah, it's all about people. It's all about community.
Maybe I'll run an informal one someday with you guys as well. Or I'll talk to the Spooks List guys. Maybe they can just have a Spooks List Spook Space that's only like the top people in the Spooks List. How's that sound?
Well, probably will be cool.
I hope it's an interesting thought experiment, definitely. We got 3 minutes left here, so a Primal Key I called up, he requested. Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Greg? You guys got Aptos name system now, but that wasn't my question. But I see your .aptos. But I was actually going to ask as a question. Do you guys feel like generative AI will somehow influence the future of blockchains in any way? It might be Aptos. It could be any blockchain or anything to do with blockchain or Web3.
I mean, yeah, I think it's very interesting. The generative AI, especially in like for NFTs and for the art that's used. I know Aptos Art Museum. I'm pretty sure those are generated art where they like. I think I got a mouse that has butterfly wings or something. It's kind of weird, but it's kind of cool also as well. And I know that a lot of people, especially, are using AI for coding their stuff. It's going to be really exciting when Move, like the smart contracts, are coded via like ChatGPT or whatever. Then it'll cut down a lot of the work for a lot of people.
Yeah, I can say that internally, like we're using, so GitHub has a GPT flavored AI that it does for code. And we use GPT a lot in engineering, actually. It's both for auto-completing like really, really simple methods and stuff. It saves a huge amount of time, right? But I also would add that it's very easy for GPT to just sound confident and good and just have no idea what it's talking about. As an example, Alin is a cryptographer here, and he went and asked it about Peterson hashes, which I know nothing about. A quarter of it was actually, he was like, oh yeah, that's correct. 2/3 of it was completely wrong, like not even remotely correct. But to me, I was like, man, this thing really knows what it's talking about. He's like, all of that is wrong. And then a quarter of it was on a completely different topic with a similar name, just because it decided to go that way. For engineering and things that are like have a very clear answer at this point in time with GPT, I think it's fantastic. But I would be very, when I see people who build full end-to-end apps and stuff, or like back-end with GPT who don't know how to code it, cool, and I think it's a glimpse of the future. But I do worry how secure some of these systems are and things like that, because GPT always sounds confident, even if it has no idea what it's doing. But it is fantastic.
I mean, you always sound confident, Max, so.
Yeah, so that's what Lynn came back with. He was like, well, people have been doing the same thing for thousands of years, and he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
All right, I want to let Alex say something real quick, and then we're going to end the space for this time.
I have a question for Max. Maybe it will take too long, but can you explain, because Certic recently released the Move Prover article, can you explain in DGN terms what is it and why do you use it?
So I can explain really quickly so that we don't go over too much. But the idea of the Move Prover is that you can you can, it's almost like, you write unit tests for code. Instead, this is writing a specification of what you expect it to do. And the Move Prover will run through all possible inputs, all possible outputs with math, and basically verify that, your expectations are correct given the code you've written.
Yeah, you basically mathematically prove that what you said you expect is expected in all cases. Thank you, everyone, for joining this episode of Move Monday. We'll be back next week, and I hope you all have a great day.